Recording now, okay.
Pardon me.
Morning, everyone. Purim Sameach. I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, wow, Rabbi Zaram, your Abi Sun mask is unbelievable. The costume is just nailed it. Unbelievable. So I'm going to share an idea, and please God, I'll be interrupted because he'll be here.
Actually, Debbie.
Yeah, please God, I'll be interrupted because Rabbi Zaram will come and I'll finish the idea another time. But if not, just nice while we're all here, we might as well share some Torah. I just want to thank people who made this particular breakfast and then possible. In particular, I want to thank Debbie, who organised the food and sponsored the food on behalf of, in memory of her father, mother, and mother, Hebrew name?
Is it Bus the father?
Bus,
Father?
father's name. Yeah.
Sarah Bus Reuben.
Sarah Bus Reuben, your site is today. And thank you also for organising the food as well as everything else. There's a lot that we can learn from the Megillah. The Megillah is an extremely profound and in-depth book, and I always find it very fascinating. And I want to talk about 3 lessons of how we should be that we learn from the Megillah. 2 are from Haman. Very good. And it's not pantomime season, but okay.
Oh, yes, it is.
Very good. 2 are from Haman, or 1 is from Haman, and you'd have to do that every time. It's going to be a long shit. Okay? And 1 is not so much actually from Haman, but it's how the people around him interact. So we have, a lesson from Haman, a lesson from how the people around him interact. And then we're going to, on the flip side, we're going to look at the heroine of the story, which is Esther. And we're going to learn, I think, an unbelievable lesson from Esther, which I think is extremely important and relevant for all of us as well. When it comes to Haman, one of the most important lessons and one of the fascinating aspects, a really fascinating chapter of Tanakh, is chapter 6 of the Megillah. Chapter 6 is absolutely brilliant because if you read through it, there's a lot of things in it that make very little sense. The king is awake. Why is the king awake? Doesn't tell us. However, the Chachamim give us the subtext. Esther's been very, very clever. Queen Esther has gone to Achashverosh. She's been told by Mordechai, she's been told by her uncle to go and to save the Jews and to, hurry up. But she doesn't do that. She slow plays it. Instead, she goes to Achashverosh and she says, she interrupts, she risks her life. And Achashverosh says, whatever you want, half my kingdom, I'll give it to you. And what does she say? I want you to come to dinner with Haman. Very strange. Gets to the dinner, same thing again. What do you want? After half my kingdom, I'll give it to you. I want you to come to dinner again tomorrow night with Haman. So this is very strange. Why is she so slow playing it? And why is it affecting the king's sleep? So the Chachamim tell us, Esther's being very clever. Achashverosh, we know, is a very insecure man. And here comes Esther, and she's elevating Haman to the level of Achashverosh. And Achashverosh starts to think, there's something going on between Esther and Haman. They're plotting against me. That's why she's inviting him to all these meals. That's why he's coming. That's why there's something going on that's very uncomfortable. And that's why he's awake in the middle of the night. And we want proof of that. What would you do if you're awake in the middle of the night? What would anyone do?
TV.
Okay, very good. We had an array of different answers, right? You go to the toilet, watch TV, make a warm cup of milk. You do something. No one here said, open my book of Chronicles, which is very disappointing. Okay, open the book of Chronicles. Achashverosh says, open the book of Chronicles. Why? Why would he say that? Not because, it's going to put him to sleep. It's not a story time. He's feeling insecure and afraid and concerned. And when you're feeling those things, what do you want to do? You want to be reassured. Who are my friends? Who's helped me in the past? And the answer is, reads it and he sees, Mordechai. I want to see who the past stories, who's helped me, who's been there for me. Who can I trust? Who can I rely on? And the answer is Mordechai. Mordechai saved you from the plot that was occurring. And that's why Achashverosh is up in the middle of the night. And that's why he's concerned. And that's why he asks for the book of Chronicles, because he wants to know who his friends are. Now, if you're Achashverosh and you're up in the middle of the night and you're afraid and you're concerned and you're worried particularly about Haman, what's the last thing you want to hear in the middle of the night? The last thing you want to hear is a noise in the middle of the night. You're concerned, you're worried, there's a plot, and suddenly you hear a noise. And the Megillah is amazing with the way it presents it, because we don't hear the noise. It says for Achashverosh suddenly says, what's that? What's that noise going on? We see the fear in him. What's the noise? And they tell him, it's Haman. And again, if you're Achashverosh and you're insecure and you're worried and you're afraid, you're concerned, the last thing you want to hear is Haman is outside at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is the last thing you want to hear. So he says, okay, bring him in. And now Achashverosh engages in a little test with Haman. He wants to know, what does Haman really want? What does Haman really want? I need to figure out what's going on here. He engages in a bit of psychological trickery. So he says to Haman, knowing the egotist that Haman is, he says to him, what would you do to someone the king wants to reward? And he knows Haman's going to think automatically, it must be me. Who else could it be? It must be me. What would you do to such a person? Really, Achashverosh is asking him, what do you want? What do you want, Haman? I need to understand what you want. What's going on in that mind of yours? And Haman fails this test absolutely spectacularly, because what does he say?
The king.
He says, I want to be you. I want your crown, and I want your clothes, and I want your horse, and I want everything that you have. So Achashverosh is trying to say to him, I need to reassure myself that Haman's not actually plotting against me. Haman, what is it you want? And Haman says, I want to be king. That doesn't reassure him at all, right? This is not a very reassuring answer whatsoever. But the interesting thing, the lesson we learn, is the lashon, the language the Megillah uses when Haman says to himself, who could the king want to reward except me? The Megillah says, Haman says, belibo. Haman says, in his heart, which means to himself. And the Midrash points out, and it brings loads of examples, 10 examples for each. Whenever you have a rasha, you have a wicked person that is speaking to themselves, the language is belibo. The person says belibo. Has Esav and all other examples, brings 10 examples throughout Tanakh that the wicked person says belibo in their heart, so such and such, this is what I'm saying to myself. Whenever you have a righteous person, and even it brings an example of Moshe, brings an example of Hashem himself, it says El Libo, to my heart. And the first lesson we learn is this. When it comes to the wicked, they say things belibo in their hearts because they're controlled by their hearts, and their emotions completely control them, and they have no control over it. And that's what we see with Haman. He becomes so overwrought by his anger and his fury towards Mordechai. Nothing else matters to him. He's controlled by his emotions, and he lets that get the better of him. And all his plans, everything he's achieved, unravel because his emotions, his hatred control him. But when it comes to a righteous person, the righteous is El Libo, to the heart, because the righteous people can control their hearts, can control their emotions, can channel their emotions into the right way. The first lesson we learn from Haman is this: not to be Belibo people, not to be people whose passions and emotions can control us and consume us and lead us down the wrong way. We are in control. We are in the driving seat. We can control our emotions and to sign the way that we want to go and the people we want to be in life. That's the first lesson we learn from Haman. The second lesson we learn, which I think I was discussing this with Keith yesterday, is one of my favorite small little textual things you pick up in the Megillah. And there's so many of them. When Haman things start to go wrong for him, right? Things start to go wrong for Haman. And he comes back to his household and he wants to tell them things have started to go wrong. Things aren't looking so good anymore. And he comes in and he's greeted, the Megillah tells us, by Zeresh, his wife, v'chol ohavav, and all of his friends, all of his loved ones. Everyone's there to greet him, his whole household. And he tells them, oy vey. I don't think he said oy vey, but in my head he does, okay? Oy vey, things have started to go wrong. Everything started to go downhill. And, they had this whole business with the horse and Mordechai. It's very upsetting. And the Megillah then tells us who answered him. When he was speaking, he spoke to Zeresh v'chol ohavav, Zeresh and all his loved ones. Who answers him? Zeresh v'kol chachamav, his wife and his advisors, his colleagues, his acquaintances. Nothing's changed. It's the same people. But when he was on top of the world and he was powerful and he was successful, they were his loved ones, they were his friends, they were his mates. But when things start to go wrong and they can see things going wrong, they transform. We're just his advisors, we're just his colleagues, we're just here, professional relationship, there's nothing else going on there. And I think this is also a very important lesson, not that we feel bad for Haman in any way, but it's a very important lesson for how we should be and how we be careful about the people around us, that to be a friend to others is about being a friend in good times and in bad. Not just when they're riding high and we can get something from them and it's good to be around them, but when they're struggling, when they're in difficulty, when things aren't going so well. It's important for us not to be like Haman and his acquaintances, but the opposite, to be people who are there with people through thick and thin. And that's one of the ideas of one of the mitzvot of Purim, Matanot Le'Evyonim. This is such an important mitzvah. If people are struggling, we raise them up. We don't shun them. We don't just befriend people because it benefits us. Opposite. We befriend people and we stick with them through thick and thin. So the second message of the Megillah that we learn. The third message I want to speak about comes from Esther. Esther, I think, is one of the most fascinating characters in Tanakh because she's entirely ordinary. entirely ordinary, except for the fact that we're told she's very beautiful and slightly green. I don't know how you reconcile those two things, but maybe that was the fashion back then. She's very beautiful. She's a little bit green. That's all we know about her. All we know about Esther at the beginning of the Megillah is that she is an orphan, and basically that's it. That's all we know. When it comes to Mordechai, we're given sort of two whole pasukim, quite long pasukim, and they tell us his lineage, they tell us his tribe, they tell us where he comes from, they tell us when he was exiled. They tell us all this thing. We need to know all these things about Mordechai. When it comes to Esther, she's an orphan. She's beautiful. That's it. That's all you need to know about the heroine of the story. It's odd. Then we continue on, and we see Esther act for the first time. And the very first time Esther acts is also very underwhelming. Because Mordechai is there, stuck for Ephah, he's wearing sackcloth and ashes, he's in mourning in public. And what does Esther say? She says, this is not the fashion. What are you doing? You're embarrassing me. You're dressed out here in sackcloth and ashes in front of the palace. What are you doing? That's not right. And she sends him clothes. It's very superficial if you think about it. Mordecai's there in mourning, sackcloth and ashes, and she goes, get him an Amazon order with some new clothes. This is not dignified. This is not right. This seems very, very strange, very underwhelming, very superficial way to behave. And then we see her speak for the first time, albeit through a messenger. And Mordecai tells her, all the Jews are going to die, and everything's gone, and it's going to be terrible. The whole nation's going to be destroyed. Everything's over. And what does she say? What do you want me to know about it? What do you want me to know about it? In fact, her language is actually, it's derision. It's so strange. She says to Mordecai, oh, Mordecai, everyone knows you can't just go to the king. What do you want me to do about it? I can't do anything. It's a risk. It's a capital offense to go to the king without being pulled. I can't do anything about it. Extremely underwhelming again. So strange. This is our heroine. And yet, the first time we see her, we're told nothing. The first time she acts, superficial. The first time she speaks, it's at worst ignorance. And, it could be even you see self-indulgence and uncaring. Very strange. But then, in the course of a conversation, in the course of a couple of pasukim, Mordechai says, famous response, says, listen, if the Jews are decreed to be saved, we're going to be saved. But are you going to be the one? Are you going to be the character? Are you going to be the one who brings this all about? And everything changes for Esther, and she starts to take control. And she says, a famous line, Kasher avadati, avadati, if I die, I die. But this is what you're going to do. Gather all the Jews, bring them together, fast, connect everyone together. Get these people who are scattered and dispersed, bring them back into one community, fast, dove and pray for me, and I'll go to the king. I'll do my bit. I'll do everything that I can do. And from that, the end of that particular chapter, the end of chapter 4, is very interesting because Mordechai goes and does everything Esther commanded. Here we have this girl, this woman, who at the start of the chapter, there was nothing really good to say about her. Now she is the one commanding the entire Jewish people, because when the opportunity rose, she stepped up and she made the most of it, and she was the hero. And I think for me, I always find this very powerful, because sometimes we look at our stories through history, we look at Moshe, and we think, amazing what Moshe did, but I'm no Moshe. I'm not Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm not Aaron. I'm not Abraham. These are, hard to relate to characters. But I find with Esther, there's something so special. She didn't come from anywhere special. She didn't come from any royal lineage. She didn't have some sort of innate special quality from birth that was going to make her into this hero for all time. She was a normal person. She had normal emotions. She was concerned. She was afraid. She was embarrassed. She was a normal person. But when the opportunity arose, she stepped up to save the entire Jewish people and change the course of history. And for me, that's a really powerful message for Purim, because each and every one of us can take heart from that when our opportunity arises to do something good on a small scale or on a massive scale, doesn't matter where we've been, doesn't matter where we've come from, we will have the opportunity to take that lesson from Esther herself and to rise up, to grasp the opportunity in our hands and to change the course of history itself. Purim Sameach.
Thank you very much, Rabbi, for stepping in. I do apologise. That I don't know what's happened to the guest speaker. I don't know. I can't contact him. He's not answering his phone. I do apologise. I'll have to find out, and he'll have to come for another occasion. There must be some reason why he hasn't made it today and hasn't been able to contact us. So I do apologise on his behalf. But I do thank Rabbi for stepping in and delivering an excellent talk without notes. without any preparation, just sort of comes out of his mouth. It's amazing, amazing. You're going to go places. Good. You're going to go very far in this in your rabbinate career, I'm sure. Thank you again to Debbie for your sponsorship today, and wish you Chaim Arukim on the outside of your mother. I wish you Chaim Arukim to everyone else celebrating or commemorating your outside today. I wish you Purim Sameach. Have a nice Purim. We'll do a Rabbon and Kaddish now, and we'll see how we go. You never know. Rafi may just suddenly turn up, and we'll be here for another half hour. We'll see what happens. Rabbi Hanania Bakasham Rosaka Jofas Akoti Telefika Huba Hem Thomas Vashna Mad Nacha Face the Mansiko Yagdil Torah via Adir. David Kadash Meraba Amadi Vrach Hilutei Viamlich Makote Vachaychon Vimethon Vachaychon